Okay, so this is a sample of a P5 maths question. It's very common. No, I'm not expecting you to try it actually. It's just to show you how complex our maths question is right now in Singapore. It may look very simple, but you start to try to work it out, you realize that, hey, it actually needs more than just a simple thinking. Okay, so I shall start with the presentation. So I'm Siti Shukri, and this is my colleague Sathi Menon. We have done a case study actually, which titled The Impact of the DS Maths Intervention. So this is actually an exploratory case study of struggling primary school learners without dyslexia. So this is the content of our presentation today. Okay, we'll start with the introduction, the methods, and also the results and findings, and lastly the conclusion. Okay, so my colleague will actually proceed with the background.
Okay, thank you. Singapore, right, has achieved like top ranking in the third trends in international mathematics and science study. So as a result, Singapore places great emphasis on our mathematics education. So based on research from Ban. It also highlights the importance of maths in the Singapore context, especially the uniqueness in terms of our bar modeling, which is a technique that we need to use for our children to help to solve word problems whereby they have to analyze statements and pictorially represent it employing a specific bar modeling technique. Okay. Hence, there's actually a growing emphasis and importance of maths, as well as a persistent and strong demand from parents for maths in DS. And this has actually, in turn, brought about the inception of the DS Essential Maths program in 2009 at the DS. So we started with about less than 20 students, and it has grown to almost about 300 students right now. Okay, so our DS Maths Intervention Program provides systematic and appropriately intensive remediation for a child to improve in an area of need, which is maths. So the intervention is crafted so that the child's stakeholders can also track the child's progress. The program has been known to benefit our students with dyslexia. However, there is little information on whether the same type of intervention would be of any benefit for non-dyslexic students, so who are also having difficulties in maths. Okay, there's also an interest for additional maths assistance. Okay, because it's not just unique to dyslexic students; it's also unique for non-dyslexic. So there's a nationwide phenomenon that sees 7 out of 10 parents who send their children for tuition, as cited in our local newspaper. Why is there importance in maths? It's very important for our primary school leaving examination, which is our PSLE, and it's also very important in our education system for. We see a need for many of them, students who are also like non-dyslexic, who are also struggling to keep up with the high standard of maths. So if you remember the sum that we just shared with you, right, that would actually explain a bit more on how difficult our standard of maths can be. Furthermore, right, based on the PSLE data, about 15% of the 38,942 students who took the PSLE exam last year scored 49% and below for their PSLE standard maths exam. And 630 of the whole cohort actually did not qualify for the secondary school promotion. So therefore, we see that there are the struggling learners without dyslexia who may exhibit similar mathematical difficulties like our students with dyslexia. Hence, our interest in this research. There are also learning difficulties in maths for individuals with specific learning difficulties. This is seen in the DSM-5. So these are the different areas that they have deficit in commonly. In number sense, memorization of arithmetic facts, accurate fluid calculations, and accurate logical reasoning.
So therefore, when we want to do this case study, our aim is actually to investigate the impact of conducting our maths program on struggling primary school learners without dyslexia, and to explore the profile of those learners whose scores improved after going through the remediation. So our hypothesis before we actually do this, actually we feel that struggling primary school learners without dyslexia, but may or may not have other learning difficulties, could also benefit from the DS Maths intervention. We believe that due to the additional resources and the application of supportive strategies in the classroom could actually help them as well. Before I share on the results and the findings, let me just share with you about our DS Maths program. So our DS Maths program actually aims to support dyslexic students who are struggling in maths. And our syllabus, our curriculum, aligns very closely with the mainstream school mathematics syllabus. We only serve students who are in primary 1 to primary 6, but we do serve the diverse needs of our learners, meaning we have two separate curriculum, one essential curriculum that focus on concept mastery and understanding, and we also understand the need or the importance of the word problems for our students who are of higher ability. So therefore, we have the curriculum for the problem sums for the upper primary, for primary 5 and 6, that focuses only on solving word problems using heuristics. Now, all our teachers are trained in the OG principles. They've also been trained to teach maths according to the CRA approach, which is the concrete, representational, and abstract. It's a sequential 3-level strategy promoting overall conceptual understanding, procedural accuracy, and fluency by employing multisensory instructional techniques when introducing the new concepts. So now each level builds up on the concepts taught previously. Of course, they can also be doing simultaneous as well. Our teachers also trained to teach word problems or problem solving using the Polya's 4-step strategies. Okay, so bearing this in mind, this is how our teachers teach in DS. So for our case study, the method that we choose is actually qualitative and as well as quantitative. We use the results of the pre and post tests of several mathematics topics that were analyzed, and the teachers actually answer the questionnaire to give a better insight of the learner's profile and to see whether the kids actually are receptive to our maths intervention. So our participants actually, there's a total of 9 primary school students. We actually have 2 non-dyslexic learners, which is stated as ND. One is a typical primary 3 boy with no diagnosis of any learning difficulty at all. Now, the interesting one is actually the other primary 5 boy with no diagnosis of dyslexia, but he has developmental language disorder. So if you do not know what DLD is, actually defined at the side, it's actually similar to SLI. Now, the 7 learners with dyslexia are our students who are already on the DS Maths Essential Maths program. So 2 classes were chosen. Now, each class has 4 students, 1 with the non-dyslexic and 3 of our own students. Now, how we place them actually is that all of them are strong in maths based on the latest school examination, meaning they are scoring below 50%. And then we also check that both of the non-dyslexic learners are only attending DS for extra math support and do not have any other tuition. Of course, we cannot eliminate the other factors of school remedial lessons where it's a compulsory extra lessons for them. Okay, so a pre-test, how do you proceed is that a pre-test of 2 or more topics on the levels of mathematics curriculum were tested at the beginning of each term and a post-test at the end of the term. Now, each test actually lasts about 30 minutes. Teachers were required to complete a class program plan, which states the concept to be covered in that term. Now, during that term, the students went through 7 hours of intervention with another hour dedicated for pre- and post-test at the start and the end. So all lessons complied with the DES Essential Maths teaching methodology using the CRA approach, and also both teachers were also trained in the OG principle. Now, at the end of the studies, teachers were interviewed to state their observation about how their teaching instruction were received by the ND students with comparison to their learners with dyslexia peers. Okay, so this is the interesting part that we will show you. I'll pass it back to Sathi.
Okay, this is an interesting result of case of Chester, who is a primary 3 non-dyslexic student. We looked at the three aspects in terms of math skills, organization skills, attitude. So before intervention, he was unable to recall maths multiplication facts. He had difficulty applying maths concepts to short answer questions. And after intervention, he is able to have the skills to recall multiplication facts. For the 5, 8, and 9 times table, he has improved his arithmetic and computational skills. However, he still faces difficulty in doing more complex word problems. In terms of organization skills, he used to sleep and nap to avoid doing maths questions. Yeah. However, right now, he actually makes a conscientious attempt to do maths tasks, and he puts in the effort to attempt to use problem-solving strategies like model drawing. His attitude-wise, he used to be having a lot of issues with his self-esteem, and he doubted his own ability. However, right now, he's more confident of his abilities. So just share with you some of his work samples so you can understand what I'm talking about. Okay. This was his word problem that was in the post-test before the intervention. He just randomly multiplied the numbers. After the test, even though he didn't, after the intervention, even though he didn't get it right, but he still is able to draw graphically and represent the sum and draw models accordingly. If you look at the next one, there are two different areas that we're looking at. One is his arithmetic skills, the other one is onto his word problem. He has improved in terms of his calculation and improvement in terms of logical reasoning for the word problem. As you can see, he is able to draw the model. Okay, this is also another question which shows how he has improved in his logical reasoning and mathematical number sense as well. Previously, he just, when I asked him about his how he came across with this answer, he just told me that he picked random numbers and multiplied it. But however, after the intervention, right, he is able to explain to me his model and how he arrived at it. Yeah, even though he's, again, the calculation, he didn't get it right, but at least he's able to understand the word problem. I think that was a step that has showed great improvement in. Okay, so, yeah, the pre-test and post-test. In terms of his pre-test results, most of the students in the class, except for student N, who was absent, had an improvement for the pre-test and post-test. Chester, however, our non-dyslexic, he made the most significant improvement with a mean improvement of 2.67 points in this class for the topic of whole numbers. This is for the topic of length, mass, and volume. Again, all of them were there, present for the post-test and pre-test. Our student, Chester, who is a non-dyslexic, he did not make a significant mean improvement because his mean improvement was about 14 points, like his peers, but his scores actually doubled. So his pre-test score was 10 out of 28, his post-test was 21 out of 28. Okay, now I'll pass the time to Aishah.
I'm sorry, a bit confusing, right? Keep passing the baton. Okay, so let me just tell you about Marcus. He's okay. Last year he was P5, so this is P6. I may have some typo error there. So before the intervention, it's actually all these things are actually noted down through our conversation with the parents as well as the teachers. Okay. Before the intervention, you can see that he didn't possess any fundamental skills that is necessary to solve mathematical tasks. So if you ask him to do a math sum, he would just, like what Sathi said, just randomly choose any answer and try to work it out himself. Okay? But after intervention, he learned to apply all the fundamental concepts required for the short structured questions, although he has yet to fully acquire application skills to solve the application type of word problems. Okay, due to the fact that he does have a lot more literacy issues than our students with dyslexia. Now, in terms of organization skills, he answers in a messy manner. He still does answer in a messy manner, actually. Okay, but previously he was not able to organize ideas to solve word problems. But right now he's able to actually chunk those information and then solve them, or better understand and make sense of the information in the word problems. Attitude-wise, from the parents' feedback, that he didn't like maths. Okay, according to the mother, he would actually keep himself doing maths lesson in school. But right now, he's more or less reluctant. He presents his answer very confidently to his peers in class, and he even coaches his other peers as well. Okay, so you look at the example given. So the first one, he did attempt to make the bar model, but there wasn't any working. And this is the problem that our students all face, actually. They can draw quite perfectly, and then they just stop there because they have no idea what that means. Okay, so right now he's able to transfer that into workings to solve the problem. And another common one where our students do it, if you do not know, just leave it blank, okay, or you don't have time. Or most of our students actually, if you realize, the ending questions will be left blank because they're just so tired normally after doing so many sums, right? So right now, you see the changes. He actually made a word problem and he actually tried to solve it as well. Even though it's not perfectly done, the final answer may actually be wrong. Okay, so for pre and post tests, 75% of the learners had improvement of scores after the intervention. Now, one student had the same scores for pre and post tests. Now, Marcus actually showed a very slight increase of only 1 point, okay, for the term 2, which is area of triangle. Now, for the other topic, if you realize, right, when we did for the P3, they only did one topic or a few topics only for one term. But for P5, the demands is actually higher. So the pressure is there to actually cover as many topics as possible because the PSA is in P6. Okay, so they're doing a few topics in one term. So they did ratio as well. Now, 75% of the learners had improvement. Okay, however, student in EW, learner with dyslexia, regressed by 0.5 points. Now, we actually thought that taking into consideration that ratio was only introduced in primary 5, and there could be actually unlearning and relearning involved causing the regression. Before this, they had never heard of ratio before. Okay, so they only learned fractions, and at P5 is when it was being introduced. Now, Marcus continued to show improvement with his scores doubled from pre-test. Okay, so he scored above the mean improvement. And then in term 3, the second term of the intervention, now all the learners had improvement, okay. Marcus made the most significant improvements for this topic of decimals. And then they also did percentage, and this is another killer topic. 60%, only 60% of the learners actually made improvement of scores. One student had the same scores for pre and post tests. However, Marcus regressed by 1 point for this topic of percentage. So we did an investigation and I realized that, through the teachers' lesson plans and program plan, percentage was only taught for 1.5 weeks. So there wasn't enough depth to cover before they actually took the post-test. Now, as you can see, our program is very intervention-based. Even though we had set the program plan or the topics to be taught, we still have to go as fast as we can with them or as slow as we must be. So if they have not mastered, we still have to do the review and do it at their pace. Okay. So this is a sample of the program plan that our teachers use. So on top of the lesson plans, they also have to do a 10 weeks program plan. Okay, so through this case study of these 2 students without dyslexia, we realized that teachers observed all the learners who were placed according to the school performance as well as to the error analysis of their exam papers. Those students, right, they also displayed similar difficulties in maths when compared to our students with dyslexia. So that's the profile that we are looking at. And we also noticed that actually all of them lacked in structured problem-solving skills. And thus, they had to be taught the systematic approach of understanding word problems explicitly. So we are talking about not just telling them what the solutions are, we actually have to break down the word problems to them sentence by sentence. So that's what we do in DS as well, where we break the word problems to sentence comprehension level or even down to the word vocabulary level. Teachers also found that non-dyslexic learners were receptive to the teaching methods of using the CRE approach in building the foundational concepts. Now, there's, interestingly, for Chester, who is actually a non-dyslexic learner, he was observed that using literacy to teach maths works better for him than our students with dyslexia. So what I'm talking about is actually if you teach maths through stories, he will actually be more receptive than our students with dyslexia. Now, it's quite predictable because our students have actually literacy issues. Now, Marcus, who have developmental language disorder, it seems that he needs a longer time to comprehend a new topic. All right, as you've seen in the topic of percentage, you just teach him for 1 week, he cannot actually digest and process information very well. Additionally, you have to take note that P5 syllabus is a lot more demanding as compared to a primary 3. So therefore, we need to consider the duration and depth of a particular topic to be taught in the remediation for it to be more effective. All right.
Okay, so for our conclusion, we felt that the study has demonstrated that overall, learners without dyslexia benefit from the same intervention designed for learners with dyslexia. This type of maths program is also beneficial for learners without dyslexia, but has other learning difficulties. So, improvements were also seen in their mathematical performance with reference to their number sense, logical reasoning, and accuracy of calculation. Benefits were also seen in their learning behaviors. The learning behaviors include fear of mathematics and more confidence in solving word problems. So, both students are still in the program and are showing continuous improvement in maths. Okay, for our conclusion, we feel that there's also a limitation in this research because it's limited by the students' own responses and the lack of measure of their maths anxiety before and after intervention. So this case study, right, was solely based on teachers' observations and students' performance scores. So further research can also be conducted to investigate the impact of inclusion of non-dyslexic learners in a maths intervention program for learners with dyslexia in terms of academic and social outcomes. Future studies can also be expected to include a larger group or to include more learners with other learning difficulties in fulfilling the direction of the DES and providing services for a more diverse group of learners. So if you look at this email that we received from Marcus Results, it shows that he had an improvement and he's actually doing very well in school. Yeah, he actually scored 74 over 90. And yeah. Okay. Yeah, so that's the end of our presentation. Thank you very much.